the 5 days, we have those 12 schools interacting together, and they're from, again, all over the city. So we have these goals of exploring one problem. So we often have a theme. We make sure that there's an Eco World Cafe opportunity so they learn from each other and share best practices. And then we're intentional about building their leadership and facilitation skills to run an eco event. And I am so glad Bonnie is in the room, because she remembers the breakfast at Cora's when I said, Bonnie, I need a new model for middle schools. We just can't just have them participate and just walk away. We need to turn them into leaders. We need to empower them. Well, how do we do that? So with whipped cream, bacon, pancakes, and all kinds of orange juice and coffee, we came up with this model of
Nutella. It was all about Nutella.
right. We came up with this model of train the trainer. Get the kids acting as leaders and then give them an authentic opportunity to be leaders back in their schools. So the idea of an eco event came through. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but this was the basic agenda. Come, share with others what you do well, learn from each other. Then we give you some information and bring sort of your background knowledge up. We model and show sort of what facilitation looks like. Then we allow you in groups to unpack what facilitation looks like, kind of come up with that success criteria. Then they work through something they're going to present. And then in groups of 4 schools each, so one group is presenting in front of 3 other schools, and that happens 3 times. Then they practice their facilitation skills and get feedback from their peers, how they did. And then they're launched back into their schools to do the same. Well, what is an eco event? And if I'm talking too fast, it's because of the coffee that overcompensates the beer last night. Take a breath. Okay. So what is an eco event? We talk about what engages other youth. And so again, this was co-developed by the youth. We want to make it fun. And we also want to make it active. As I learned from Planet Academy, sitting and listening to stuff about plastics has got to be the most boring thing possible. So let's embody that. Let's use our bodies and our minds and our energy to learn about plastics, learn about wildlife, learn about whatever the issue is. And so we use fun and active games. We also want to make sure that after they learn that these kids can take action. So in that, they're not only the leaders, but they are taking action by running an eco event. And then, of course, by teaching others, they're rippling their learning to all the school community. And really, by hosting an eco event, they move from a learner to a leader. So the first activity in our conference is often learning about what plastics are or what the issue is about. We try, again, to make that interactive and collaborative, also using constructivism principles, building on prior knowledge and then moving forward from that. So often we look at the roots and the symptoms and look at causal events. Activity 2 is we really just take things like Project Wild games, Project Wet games, team building games, and we switch the focus. Instead of just on team building, we add a theme to it. So how many people know, put in the chat or, just raise your hand, how many know the game Fishy Little Fishy, Come Swim in My Sea, Sharky Little Sharky, You Can't Catch Me? Anybody know that game? Okay, so yes, it's just a silly little game, usually taught in primary, where you have a person who's in the middle, and they have their arms out, and it's almost like Red Rover, where they have to pass the person in the middle. And if the person in the middle tags you, then you're stuck in place, and you become the coral. And the coral can't chase you, but they can reach out with their arms to tag you. And so as they run octopus, as they run from one side to the other side, back and forth, the coral become more dense. And yes, so it is octopus. That's the better name for it. And so it's even harder and harder. So by the end, there's one or two people that the shark is trying to capture. So we thought, okay, let's change it into ghost nets. So ghost nets, in terms of plastic pollution in the ocean, catch fish and other species because they just float. They've been left there, they've been lost. And so the person in the middle, instead of being an octopus, is now a ghost net. And then the other people that got caught as ghost nets. So again, taking a very simple game, changing the name, changing the players, allows kids to learn about something that they wouldn't necessarily connect to. And by doing it in a way that's fun and embodied, they get, by reaching out their arms, how many fish they're catching. We also had a couple of interns really develop these games in terms of inclusion. So you'll see that there's inclusion recommendation, there's discussion questions, there's what to watch for, there's variations of the game included in the actual layout. So it's not just how to play the game, but what might you be watching for? And more like a lesson plan, how do we do this with your community? And then after lunch, the students are given a choice of 2 games to learn. They're given 2 games. They choose one of the games. So it's set up that everybody's teaching a different game. And then they go into their small groups and then they teach that game to their peers. And then this is where their peers give them feedback. And so it's easy to set up because we've predetermined what 2 games they're looking for. So we know that everybody will have different equipment. We walk around, the teachers are there helping them think about how they're going to introduce it and debrief it based on the success criteria of facilitation that they already developed from the morning. Event planning comes after. So after they've taught that, then they kind of think of, well, what can we make this into? Will it be an Earth Day event? Will it be an Oceans Day event? Will it be a fun day? And so we give them, in fact, this event planning guide is quite thick. Whoops, I don't know if I can show that with my green screen. Okay, I'll put it next to my body here. It's quite thick with different models of engagement. And so it works for a single class. Your team could teach it to a single class. Your team could teach it to the whole school and have a rotation. Your school could, your team, and they are the trainers. So they're also going back as a team of 5 to teach their eco team, and then their eco team can then lead the games into for the school. If you want, we do have not only the plastic guide one, we did a wildlife version, and we did a water version. I'm just trying to think of the 3 years we've done this. So we do have the activity games manuals electronically. What I was surprised about, thinking, I have to give all this information to them and help them event. They actually exceeded my expectations on the event planning. They know how to plan an event. They know how to plan a birthday party. They know how to plan a school event. They knew exactly what they wanted to do before. They knew what they wanted to do during. They knew what they wanted to do after. And it was just a matter of making sure they had the things like ask the principal. Make sure you're talking to the caretakers to get the space. So we really just added a few more extra things to make it friendly in a school context. Of course, we have lots of templates for them, graphic organizers that made that a little bit easier once they got there. So why do we think this works? So after the first year we did it, we were actually blown away. We did have some people come in and say, oh my goodness, it surprised us, to be honest. We just didn't know why the impact. So we started to go a little bit deeper on why did this work so well? I mean, not only was it Bonnie's wisdom, we knew that, that's a no-brainer. Anything Bonnie does is wise and crazy, so it's going to work. But what does the research say? The research says that youth are amazing change agents because when they get their own voice, they are able to connect with kids in a way that I can't. They speak their language. Heck, I didn't even know what RB meant in the chat. I was figuring out BRB in the chat. Like, oh my gosh, I have learned so many acronyms this year in the chat. I'm so uncool. My kids will tell me, and I'm old. So kids connect with their peers. They also live where they live, because if you think about that cultural relevant pedagogy, if you're from Nelson Mandela, everybody's in a place that is in an apartment building. So they were able to adapt the games in a way that met the people that they live in front of. I don't have that intimate information about who is in front of you. And so they were able to adapt the games to their spaces and to their people in a way that I could not. They're also very collaborative and flexible. I mean, Michelle, you talked about being flexible in this virtual world. You kind of pivot on a dime. They're just like, okay, we got it. We can do this. They're energetic as well. And by putting them in this role, they were amazing role models. And so building that confidence in them, they weren't teaching in front of adults. They weren't presenting, in front of 100 people. They were presenting in front of their peers, but also the little kids. And as you know, little kids think the older kids are heroes. If you've ever done reading buddies, reading buddies are for life. You were my reading buddy once. Oh my gosh, those big role heroes. When you go a little bit deeper into the research about meaningful student involvement, you may have come across this particular Roger Hart's ladder of participation, where the first 3 rungs are written in red for a purpose that often we tokenize the youth. We're going to give them a master of ceremonies position, but here's the script. Or we use them to decorate the adult activities. Often what I do in your classrooms, you've already planned the activities, the youth do the activities. But how can we move it up so that they're youth initiated and directed, that they're youth initiated and they co-collaborate with the adults to make those decisions? And for student leadership to be truly meaningful, greater levels of student participation and student self-determination, sorry about the hyphens, should be strived for. This comes from a similar author. If we also want students to continue changing the world, we need to give them sustainable roles. And what I like about EcoSchools is that you can participate in kindergarten, you can participate in grade 6, you can participate in grade 8, you can participate in grade 12. And so by allowing and building up the skills throughout their EcoSchools career, we are giving them sustainable roles that move from, all the way from where they're younger to older. This allows them into lifelong engagement, because speaking and being leaders in front of others is something that is a skill that will provide lifelong engagement in issues that really matter to them. And of course, a powerful purpose. What more powerful purpose than working on issues of planetary importance? So these are authentic reasons for getting youth involved. And that for sure is a link to check out. Just another way of looking at it from Fletcher's Dimensions of Meaningful Student Involvement. This is, what do we look for that indicates that this is really good student involvement? Well, we look, do they actually develop complex learning skills? I would say facilitation is a complex learning skill. The games, not so much, but the facilitation and the debriefing, absolutely. The leadership, the partnerships, they're working with their teachers to plan an event. It's not the teachers planning the event, so the teachers and the students are working together in partnerships. And can students do this from any, do all students have access to do this? Yes. They have a gym, they have a schoolyard, and then they're given the resources that anybody can do this. And we made sure, again, that there's inclusivity so that there's a range of games to play from so they can find ones that work for their community. And we can go on. So I do have a question for you. in your role as youth engagers, oops, hang on, no. What do you look for as evidence of meaningful participation? I've given you some sort of ideas from the research, but when you engage youth, what do you look for? How do you know it's working? So there's the link again if you're not there. Yeah, I'll just move that down a bit. So a lot of that is it's engagement from their lens. And this is important because often, again, in sort of colonization mindsets, we say this is the way, this is the norm. But when you look at these responses, you realize the youth are setting their own success criteria in terms of what makes something work. And we see evidence of that because they're using words like cool. They're setting their own goals. They propose ideas. They, want to do next step. They're excited. Absolutely. So you can see when it works, when it's meaningful. So now I'm going to pass it over to our folks that not only participated in this event, but are going to share with us a little bit about their community and the meaningful impacts that this had on their school.
Thank you, Pam. It's always great to remind ourselves of the work that we've done, right? Because it's been a couple of years since we were able to be with the kids, but it's always a great few days with young students and their teachers, and it's always amazing to see what they know and what they want to take on. So with us today, we have three of our incredible EcoLead teachers at the TDSB, and they have participated with their students in our middle schools conference. So we wanted you to be able to hear directly from them. So Michelle, if you want to introduce yourself and then just describe your school community and the members of your eco team.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen. So my name is Michelle. This year I am doing grade 8 virtual, but last year and the year before I was at Humberwood Downs Junior Middle School. Humberwood Downs is quite a large school. We have I'm going to say about 900 students in the school. We used to have more, but it kind of dwindled over the years. So about 900 students, and it is a K-8 school. We are very lucky to have our school be adjacent to the Humber Arboretum. So I feel very lucky to be part of a school community that has such wonderful outdoor access and outdoor space. In terms of our eco team, we kind of open it up to everybody, but most of the students that come are between grade 4 and grade 8 students. What we typically do is that we usually pair up when we're doing activities, we tend to pair up the younger students with the older students, just because we don't want to make it in any way exclusive. Any student that wants to come can come. And so it's a beautiful school, it's a beautiful community, and they always look forward to engaging with the Humber Arboretum.
Myself, that's amazing. Thank you very much. Jason Reddy from Iron View Public School.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jen. My name is Jason Reddy. I'm from INU Public School, and it is a K-8 school. We have roughly about 430 students. And like Michelle said, we open it to the whole school. But we find that the majority of students who show up to meetings are between 4 to 8. But we do try to engage the primary students, even the kindergarten students, and that, we'll talk to the teachers about and try to get them involved. And obviously it depends on the project, but that's something that the mindset that we have, and we try to find these opportunities to get them involved. We did an initiative where we were cutting out silhouettes of birds and putting on windows because we had some birds fly into our windows at the school, and this was becoming a thing. So we ran with it, and the Eco Club picked it up, and we had some of the younger kids cut it out. And you get what you get sometimes, so you work with it as a, as a group. But the initiative is there, and the idea is there, and the whole school is part of it. So I think that's everybody feels welcome, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I've had the great fortune of being at your school many times to, view the EcoSchools program, and your kids are always, it always amazes me with what they know, right? They always know much more than we ever think they could.
I think that's starting them young, right?
Yeah.
And getting them interested. And it's not just for 4 to 8 students. I have to wait another few years, if they can do their little bit and participate, if they feel a part of it, and I think that transcends into that knowledge that you're saying, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Pam mentioned, you can start in kindergarten and go all the way through to grade 12. And now that we've been around for 20 years, we've actually seen those students by the time they're in grade 11 and 12. And it is incredible what they know. And they aren't all going into environmental jobs. They might be a doctor, a lawyer, a accountant, but they have that environmental mindset. So it's pretty special to see where they go along the way.
I
And
still get emails from, sorry to cut you off, Jen. I still get emails from students in high school that are, I missed the Eco Club and I'm trying to do this at my school. And, do you have an idea for what we can do? So, that continuity beyond is great. That's the goal, obviously.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. And our final teacher with us today is Cynthia from Taylor Creek Public School, not far from my house. So I always get to see what Cynthia's up to because I follow you on Twitter.
Ooh, awesome. Taylor Creek Public School, we are very close to the Gus Harris Trail, Fir Valley Forest. So we have a lot of amazing, the school property is on a huge piece of land that we have a little nature area that we've purposefully left that we do a lot of our class work in. We're low on the LOI scale, and we are very culturally diverse. I would say that the strong percentage of our population identifies as South Asian, as well as Caribbean, West Indian. And I think based on we're surrounded by a lot of subsidized housing and apartments, and a lot of our students had never heard of recycling or composting. They didn't have access to it where they live. And I think there was some misconceptions or stereotypes that they don't care about the environment because they didn't know or didn't have access. So once we started our Eco School program, was actually started by an EA, and I kind of inherited it off of her. And for 3 consecutive years, I was the grade 1 to 8 science teacher. So I just had it entrenched in everything we did across all grades. So it really kind of became like the whole school was really an eco school, but the team was comprised primarily of grade 5 to 8 students. And I always felt bad having to cut it off. And I hoped that, and I still hope in the future that we'll get a primary teacher from our school that will help support that end. But it's been neat to watch it grow. Like once you give students an outlet and an opportunity, eventually we had to have like interviews and tryouts. It wasn't just an automatic, you would be on the team. We could only support, about 20 students. So Then we had sort of little subgroups come in for certain projects where we needed more hand power. But yeah, that's our little awesome community.
Amazing. And I think, don't you call your class Awesome Town?
Yes, when I am a homeroom teacher, I am the mayor of Awesome Town. And when I was the Rotary science teacher, I was the lead scientist of Awesome Lab.
Awesome. I know. I love that you do that. So Cynthia, we're gonna stay with you. Can you describe the impact that the conference had on your students?
Positively huge. And so I think we got to participate 3 consecutive years. And I can remember being nervous every year that we weren't going to get in, because to me, it's such a big deal for our kids. So in the beginning year, when it was new to the kids and they weren't being used to provide an opportunity, I had to do a little bit of coaxing to get my 3 who would come. And so it was pretty easy to talk them into it. One, because it meets the leadership criteria in our portfolio, and they're keeners and they want that platinum eco status. So they were happy to do something that was going to check that off. A lot of the students that were interested in that club weren't your athletes. So they weren't getting opportunities to travel and collaborate with other peers their same age. So this was actually kind of exciting to them that they were going to meet other kids. And then for my grades, for some of my keeners, it was like, hey, you're applying to high schools. This is going to look very good for the specialized program you're applying to. So that was sort of a hook. And then once they got there and experienced it, it became the same thing with the team, where I'd have to have interviews when it was time to choose who were the ones that were going to go to the conference. I had them like writing me cards and letters to trying to justify why it was important to them. And they felt that they should be the ones selected to go. It was like, really, it became really hard to choose, but just watching their excitement and enthusiasm, and they were able to, like, in 3 years, they were able to turn it around so that we started taking over the school play day. So instead of having this, sort of generic free-for-all, environmentally wasteful, let's just entertain the kids in June because we've given up on life, the eco team took that on and engaged with, use that as an opportunity to put their skills in action and create a fun but also educational experience of something that was important to them with their peers. And even on our community day, we have like tables that community tables that the community will rent out to either sell things or promote things. And our eco team was there wanting to promote sustainable living choices that people could make at home. So it became something that sharing with their community was really important to them. So I loved it for all of those things, and to see and hear, like, from parents like that come back to me whose kids are still in high school, taking on leadership opportunities that they never thought, just from the confidence they gained in elementary. So yeah, we will push our way in there every year.
You are always welcome. And I have heard from, many of our educators and principals throughout the system that, as you said, often the kids who are joining the Eco Club, they're not sports, maybe this is their thing. That's their one thing, and they can gain their confidence and find their place among their peers. And it's been, really heartwarming to hear how, some of our students who didn't find what they needed somewhere else, they get it through Eco Club. And as Jason said, as it goes into high school, it's something familiar to them. So it's great to hear that.
And as a professional, like learning goal for myself too, I feel like my next step, if we hadn't had COVID, was to reach out more to my community. Like through this event, I realized that there were actually schools near me that were eco schools that were doing things that, you know, are within walking distance. So I really, you know, not only did I want them to try to coordinate something that they were sharing with their school, but I thought, oh my goodness, like how badass would it be to make our own little 7-8 middle school conference, and then I wouldn't have to leave out as many kids because they could network with kids in their community. So
Yeah.
when COVID is over, that's
Yeah.
on my
To-do list.
5-year plan list.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing that, Cynthia. Jason, how about your kids? What was the impact of the conference on your students?
You know, as Cindy said, it's a hot ticket. That middle school's conference is a hot ticket at my school, and it developed that way from the students going and learning and coming back and sharing. And you know, from other kids in the club, getting to see these kids go away for a day and come back with all this cool stuff. Yeah, you know, as Cynthia's saying that kids were, how do you choose, right? How do you choose? Because there are a lot of kids that want to go. And we felt the same thing. And I, fingers crossed of, I hope that we get in because it is exciting. I think it does a couple of things. And one, it really qualifies what we're doing. You know, I think sometimes you meet at recesses and you get together and you meet at lunch but to see other schools doing this and to see adults involved and to see these cool places that we're doing it, I think it really qualifies what we are trying to do in our school, right? I think it qualifies for the students that, hey, this is important stuff, right? Look at all the other people who care about it too, and other kids my age getting to talk about it. And I think that leadership opportunity is amazing because not only do they get to function as leaders at the conference, but when they come back to the school, and that's part of the discussion with my eco clubs. Okay, guys, we're going to go to this thing, but you know, we want to find stuff that we can bring back and share with our school. And we've done it in a number of ways. But one thing that was huge that Cynthia mentioned as well is we took over the EcoSchools Fun Day, and instead of having a play day at the end of the years, we have an EcoSchools Fun Day where we have the grade 8s as the leaders, and the whole school participates, and this is all organized by the Eco Club. And it allows our Eco Club members to teach the grade 8s, right? So we got these grade 4, 5, 6 students who have to teach grade 8s how to do this. And that's a growth aspect of its own, right? It's
Right.
And we're coordinating, when can we meet with these grade 8s, because you're going to be doing this activity and this is going to be here, and there's a lot of logistics involved, and all of these things require leadership and a vision. So you know, that idea of leaders, not just at the conference, but coming back, and now grade 8s, now you're leaders of the school. You're supposed to be anyway, and here's an opportunity for you. So, you know, the EcoSchools, the middle schools conference does so much. And as Pam was saying, you know, not just the animal side of it, but there is also water, and a third one, which someone put in the chat, they'd like to see those that information. So I am definitely interested in that. So the middle schools conference has had a huge impact on our school. Very, very positive. So Pam and Jen and your team, you guys are always amazing. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of Cynthia and Michelle when I say this, and you guys are fantastic. And we appreciate everything, because you guys are outstanding.
Well, thank you. We feel that you three are outstanding, and we just want to help you in any way that we can. And so, Michelle, let's hear from you about your students and, you know, what the impact was for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have only a few minutes, so I feel like sometimes I can ramble on. So if at any point you want me to stop, just let me know. So for my students, the year that I took them was 2019, and they were grade 6 students, and I selected 4. I didn't open it up to everybody. I selected 5, but one of them was unfortunately unable to come, and it was a little bit too late of notice to make that change. But I selected those students because of the fact, well, 2 of my students were already demonstrating very much strong leadership skills, but 2 of them had those budding leadership skills that I really wanted them to have the chance to develop through this conference. And then there was also a little bit of a rift going on in the group. And so I really wanted to give them that opportunity to build up their communication skills and work together through this conference. Interestingly enough, I was new at the school at the time back in 2019. I had been an OT there for a while, but as an LTO, I found out about this conference at the last minute. And luckily for us, one of the school had canceled, so we were able to get in at the last minute. And probably the biggest takeaway that my students had is that they not only learned how to facilitate the games, activities, and events with the eco team, but they were also able to collaborate together, which was really nice, and bring it into the classroom as well. You had mentioned earlier, Pam, about how it spans into the classroom, and it really does. You know, they learn the importance of communication and working together as a team to reach this goal. And so in terms of the skills that they gained, they really did take on a leadership role within our eco team. They, you know, they would meet with me once a week, and we would talk about sort of what the plan was going forward. So we collaborated, and then they took it forward from there. And I really did, not only did they become facilitators, I even took a further backseat as a supervisor at that point, because they really did take over everything to do with the team. And because of that event, they felt comfortable planning our main Earth Day cleanup that year. So they partnered with a couple of people that were out of the Humber Arboretum. So they were writing all the emails, they were contacting them, they were setting up the event on the day when different classes were going to go, they were organizing this with teachers, and really they just kind of came back to check in with me just to kind of make sure where their ideas were going were, you know, feasible to do within a school community. But they really did take on that, role. And I think I mentioned they were grade 6 students. And I really wanted my grade 6 students only because they had 2 more years at our school, and I really wanted that. Unfortunately, because of job action and COVID, I wasn't able to see their grade 7 and 8 year, but the idea behind it was, you know, kind of preparing them at that point to really take it on for the next couple of years, so that my goal was the following year to take on more grade 6 students and kind of build up that team that way. And just to close off, I still get emails from those 4 students saying that that was not only the best thing they did that year, but the most memorable experience of their entire elementary school. And I'm happy to report that they were friends afterwards, and they have maintained those friendships as well. So it does truly have lasting impacts. I can't say enough about it, so I'm going to stop though. I really can't say enough about it. I had no idea what it was going into it. I had no idea it was my first year as well.
Oh. Oh.
That's okay. I unmuted. I'll take the hint. It was really great for them. So I highly recommend it.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing. It's amazing to hear the similarities among the students and what they got out of it. So thanks very much for sharing. Really appreciate that. And I think, Pam, we're going to hand it back over to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, Michelle. I was hovering over mute because I was going to cut you off because I do have the power. So to wrap up, and then we'll leave it open for questions, is what has resonated for you? And what would you be interested in trying next in giving your students an authentic and meaningful engagement opportunity to elicit the impacts that we've talked about today?
Could you repeat that?
Absolutely. So, what has resonated for you in terms of how we engage students so that they can actually become leaders? So, moving from learners to leaders. Saw that, Jason. If you can't type, Sarai, just put it in the chat because of the, I know it's sometimes challenging to have the two screens. Yes, Cynthia, you're absolutely right. I think we're going to have to move to like 2 full weeks of middle school conferences. All right, so lots of, again, thought, and it really sort of, as we backwards plan, what Bonnie said to me resonated that morning. If you want them to be leaders, have them practice leadership. Rather than just show it, make sure they do it. And for some reason that, when I teach my AQ course, of course we model it, we do it, we do all of that. But why was I not aware of, that reason in the middle schools conference? We were giving, and there wasn't much resonance back in their schools. Now it's like we give for a purpose. We give for them to do it. So train the trainer, keeps on coming up as a phrase that resonates with me. All right. So that just brings us to our question and answer period, which I'll pass over to Tim to facilitate.
Great. Thanks, Pam and Jen, and to Michelle, Cynthia, and Jason for your great input. I hope you're ready to take questions. And folks, if you would put your questions in the chat box, I will relay them, or just simply allow Jen and or any of the 5 of you to respond. But or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you, whatever works.
My real question, Tim, is Bonnie for hire for planning?
Yes, always available to take on the next challenge. Always.
And Bonnie always makes sure everything's fun.
She sure does, absolutely. The few of you who are not from Ontario haven't had the pleasure of meeting Bonnie until now.
So I do see a question from Soraya. In terms of the older students, often I've noticed in K-8 school that our grade 6 students are really high into the Eco Club. By the time they get to 7-8, they're into student ambassadors, they're tapped out for so many different things, they're trying to work on their marks. So it is quite difficult, I think, in a K-8 school to really tap into the 8s if they're already over busy. The only thing that I've seen really work is when the student executive also has an eco-ship component, so that you have an eco student executive that will then engage the grade 8 student or the grade 7 student. And then the other part is perhaps have a graduation a graduation committee that's planning an eco event for the graduates. So make it very specific to the grade 8s, because they are already maxed out and doing so much and worried about high school and all that kind of stuff that, click into something that they're already doing. The regular eco club often doesn't interest them at the stage they're at. So you have to make it very grade 8 specific.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. I'm not sure if my chat is working all of a sudden. So feel free, Jen or Pam, to pick anything up that I'm not seeing.
It says the chat is disabled.
Oh,
That would be the reason, wouldn't it?
That, you know, just saying. Oh, and now it's back. Thank you.
That would be me with my mouse moving from one screen to another and then pressing things. That was not purposeful. Although I do have to tell you that in one of our virtual staff meetings, the vice principal thought that they should disable the chat because the teachers were chatting too much.
or
Well, that's not going to affect people who are taking time on a Saturday morning to attend Econ 2021. Absolutely not.
Yeah, so go ahead.
I was just going to say, Cynthia, I'm interested in your ideas for, you know, reaching out to some schools that are in walking distance, because I think, Jason, you've had a similar idea, right? Weren't we talking a few years ago about, you know, if we could connect with other schools that are close by, and then the students would have the opportunity for leadership, you know, with other schools.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. General Career Hour is a stone's throw from us, and you and I had talked about us connecting with them, and we connected on a couple things, but not physically. We had the idea of connecting and cleaning up. There was a hydro field that's between us, so we had the idea of joining forces and doing a community initiative of cleaning that up. It never happened, but it is certainly something that I should be continuing to do. And Cynthia, I know you mentioned there's a couple of schools in your neighborhood that you are even thinking of connecting on the middle school conference level, which I think is a great idea.
I actually got to teach at an alternative school a long time ago and got to see this in action, where I can't remember, I think it was City Hall, where we held basically a middle school conference and the school that I was teaching at was an alternative school geared towards social justice issues. So they created a social justice conference. And so the grade 8s worked in like teams of 3 and offered a workshop. And then, so they had these little menus that they had made that got distributed to other schools. It's kind of funny. This is where kid involvement, I don't remember much of went on because the kids ran it, but I do know that students from other schools got to choose the workshops that they were interested in. And somehow they made groups and teams, and you know, all these, I don't know, we had maybe 3 or 4 schools show up, and then they got distributed out to their rooms and did various activities. So the middle school conference was like, oh, seriously, we need to do this. We need to do this, strictly just focusing on eco-justice within our schools. So, and for the person who had asked the question about engaging the intermediates who aren't a part of the eco team, like there's, you know, another great way to do it is to have your eco team teach those grade 8s and then invite another school over and have them share with each other. So, and it also does take time to build that culture. So when Michelle was talking about, you know, starting with her grade 6s, if it's new to, if the culture is entirely new to the school, it's going to be quite hard to engage those 7/8s. But you know, the younger you start, and then they, you know, it's part of their culture from year to year to year, you'll see that organically happen over time.
All right, I'm just going to stop us now. Thank you everyone for attending. Again, I put Jen's email in the chat. She'll be able to send you those electronic resources. As mentioned, we have a couple of them. Again, just kudos to Bonnie for meeting me that morning over whipped cream, coffee, and bacon.
And a big thanks to Pam and Jen and to Michelle and Jason and Cynthia for sharing their experiences. What a great session, you guys. Have a great rest of the conference.
Thanks, Tim.
Great. Stop recording. Yes.